So the Painted Turtle is a camp for kids with serious and chronic medical conditions. And our goal is to give them an authentic camp experience that they otherwise wouldn't be able to have due to their medical conditions. So a lot of these kids couldn't go to a traditional camp because they need like doctors and nurses on site to help them with their medical cares, and so otherwise wouldn't be allowed to attend a traditional camp. So that's our goal, is to just provide this camp experience for them.
Very nice to meet you, Michelle. So our next question is, why do you believe programs like the Painted Turtle are important?
So the Painted Turtle, so we do operate year round. So we do family weekends in the spring and the fall, so the entire family can come to camp and connect as a family, and they meet other families like themselves. And then in the summer, we're a sleepaway camp for the children. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. It's a chance for the families to connect, meet other families like themselves, because most of these parents don't know anybody else that has a child with a chronic medical condition. So it kind of normalizes that for them. And then in the summer, the kids are meeting other kids like themselves. Same things. They go to school and they're like the only child that has a medical condition. They don't know anybody else. So it kind of normalizes that for them. They get to meet other people like themselves in a safe environment. And I think camp just in general provides great experience for all children, right? That sense of independence, that sense of connection with other people, a lot of lifelong, friendships form out of camp. And so this is something that these kids would be missing out of, and we're giving them this opportunity. And camp just in general, has benefits beyond that. Like children that attend camp are, say that they have more self-confidence, they have greater self-esteem, they have a chance at some independence, they have some chance at self-reliance and things like that. So that's kind of what we do. That's what our goal is, and that's what we're looking for. I don't know if I completely answered your question. Sorry.
That's great. Thank you.
Our next question is, how does the Painted Turtle help close gaps in healthcare inequality?
Yeah. So we do that a few ways. So just part of the demographics, almost just under 50% of our campers are some kind of minority. So, and it pretty much is very reflective of LA County. We do serve children outside of LA County, but as a camp based in LA County, we do reflect the economic and the diversity within LA County. So we're opening that up. Our camp is free of charge, so it doesn't cost anybody to come to camp. Nobody gets excluded due to being not able to pay for any of the camp experiences. And then we also will provide transportation in the summers for our kids, so that's not a barrier as well. We will meet them in different areas in San Diego or LA, Orange County, and bus them up to camp so that they can still get up there for the camp experience. And then I think for us, the volunteers that we have, the medical volunteers at camp, are like top notch. Like we have physician specialists from UCLA and Chalk and Rady's and UCSF, and they come to camp to volunteer their time. And so that comes across two ways. One, the family weekends, the parents get a chance to really have some one-on-one time with a specialist that, if you go to a doctor's appointment, you're kind of in and out there and you don't get a chance to really dialogue with a specialist and kind of dive deep and ask those questions. Or sometimes what happens is you walk out the door and you're like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot to ask this. What does this mean? And so it's in a less formal environment. It's very relaxed setting so people can just engage with these specialists and kind of talk through some issues and questions. And then during the summer, it's the same thing for the kids, right? Like sorry, my dog is going to bark. They can meet these specialists. They get to see their doctors and nurses in a totally different setting. They get to see them, not in their scrubs, not in their white coats, because the doctors and nurses are wearing t-shirts and jeans and casual and getting messy. And sorry. Yeah, I know, it's okay. I know. This is the norm nowadays, right? For interviews. Sorry. Come here, Max. It's okay. So it gives them an opportunity to see their doctors and nurses acting silly, right? And humanizing that And so the doctors and nurses aren't so scary anymore or intimidating or, informal. Like they'll do, get their faces painted, or something silly like that. They'll participate with the kids dancing on the floor, or they'll, so it just kind of equalizes it and makes it a more equitable relationship between the medical professionals and the campers as well as the families, so that there's not that, we're in this as a partnership, right? We're trying to have shared decision making and what's best for our child, and it just kind of opens that doorway for them and allows for, some conversations, open conversations.
Awesome. And the last question is kind of two questions in one, but how does socioeconomic status of families affect the care that chronically ill children receive, and what changes can be made to better support them?
I think the biggest thing that affects it is just distance, especially with these kids that have such highly specialized medical cares. There's centers, right? There's like UCLA, which is top notch, or Rady's down in San Diego, also top notch. But a lot of these families don't live in that, rural area. They may live in outlying areas. I can speak to myself. I live in Santa Barbara. I actually have a child that attends camp that has a chronic medical condition. And the closest place we can go for care is UCLA, and it's 2 hours away. And so financially, just to get just basic care for a child that has a condition, the gas to get there, do you have a reliable transportation to get there, time off work? A lot of these people, may not even have vacation time or sick time to take those days off from work. And so just trying to maintain the health of your child can be, very financially draining on you, let alone any cost of the medications. So I think, some of the things that you see happening is if you have a good social work, like they can help these parents with transportation, they can give them gas card money or something like that. The other thing that I really see happening that I think is phenomenal is a lot of these big centers are opening up satellite centers, outside of these big suburban areas and going out into more rural areas. And still, it's not the day to day, but if, every 3 months, you only have to drive 10 or 15 minutes away instead of 2 hours away. I mean, that's a big difference. So I think those are just some of the ways we can remove those barriers, is partnering with some of the community agencies that are in those suburban areas or those rural areas. And then we can get that care out there to them. I also am just going to put in a plug for nurse practitioners, because I am a nurse practitioner. And, a lot of times they practice as nurses. I love the physicians I work with. There's nothing wrong with the physicians, but nurses practice differently than physicians, and they tend to look at the whole person, and how is this impacting the child's education? How is it impacting their ability to make friends? How is it affecting the family as a whole? And so you tend to see more nurse practitioners, and utilizing them more in these rural areas, I think is another great way to kind of close that gap a little bit more.